We hope everyone had a good break. We're excited for an equally enlightening afternoon of innovation talks, panels, and conversations, where there will be a special emphasis on COVID-19 as it relates to the entertainment, arts, and sports industries. For the benefit of those who weren't with us at 9 a.m., I want to talk a little bit about Miami Law and the programs we have related to entertainment, arts, and sports. Miami Law is home to one of the top entertainment, arts, and sports programs the world has to offer. We also have the benefit of being part of an exceptional university that allows us to interact and collaborate with departments across campus, be it the Frost School of Music, the School of Communications, the School of Business, the Sports Administration Program, the Low Art Museum, or our athletic department. We've created a space for our community to come together to think, learn, discuss, collaborate, and innovate. At the heart of our program is our Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Law LLM. LLM Guide just rated our program among the top 10 in the world in both entertainment and sports. You can't run a world-class program without incredible leadership, and I couldn't be more proud to work alongside these industry giants. Harold Flegelman, director of our entertainment track, Peter Carfagna, co-director of our sports track, Patricia D. White, Dean Emeritus and co-director of the sports track, and Stephen Urice, director of the arts track. We also could not do this without incredible support from our community. Our community of EASL practitioners now reaches well over 200 that participate regularly in programming over the course of our academic year. The panels this morning and this afternoon will feature many faculty, special guests who teach, mentor, guest lecture, and provide student internships in our program. And I want to take a moment to recognize them, even though we can't mention each by name. So thank you all. And we look forward to a great afternoon. I will now turn it over to Tony Bell, second year JD student, to introduce the next panel.
Thank you, Greg. And with all that is going on in the world right now, I'm very proud to be a part of a law school that continues to provide educational opportunities to students and members of the general public. We are very fortunate that our next speaker, Brenda Schamy, has taken the time to share her insights with us today. Since graduating from the University of Miami School of Law, Brenda has flourished into an extremely successful attorney and entrepreneur. She has served the Miami-Dade community while representing indigent defendants as a public defender and owned many successful businesses in the fitness, travel, and entertainment industries. Brenda's diverse and distinguished professional experience allows her to offer holistic counseling to entrepreneurs, social media influencers, and companies of all shapes and sizes. She is a partner at DiSchino and Schamy, where her team of innovative attorneys provides business and intellectual property representation across a variety of industries, including entertainment, hospitality, nonprofit, tech, and fashion. Brenda is a leader in the Miami business and legal community, and we're very lucky to have her join us today.
Hi guys, thank you so much, Tony. I think only my mom speaks so highly of me, so really appreciate that intro. Can everyone see and hear me okay? Yes? Okay. So we'll get right to it. Like Tony said, my name is Brenda Schamy. I am a business and intellectual property attorney. I am incredibly honored to be here today. The Sports and Entertainment Conference that ESLS puts on every year is fundamental to our industry. I think they get together an amazing group of people, and it is such a show of what incredible problem solvers they and we as a community are in being able to pivot in a situation like this and still bring together hundreds and thousands of people to what is so far, I think, a very successful conference. So we'll get right to it. We're going to be talking today about how to really maximize money out of deals. I focus a lot of my work with social media influencers, which nowadays can encompass traditional celebrities, bloggers, artists, people in the fashion world, musicians, actors, and everything in between, who sometimes are making more money from being influencers than they are from their traditional revenue avenues. So we'll start with a quick a story. Back in the day before I was an attorney, when I was in high school, and it was popular to have model scouts just picking up new talent at malls. I remember a friend of mine got picked up by one of these talent scouts at a local mall. He was super excited. They called him in to do these modeling shots, and obviously he signed whatever paper they gave him, because why not? He was excited. He was going to be a model. This was really great stuff. Takes the pictures. Nothing big comes of it. That's all we know. A year and a half later, for their senior trip, a few of them had gone to Italy. And when he arrives in Italy, sure enough, there is a giant billboard with those headshots that he had taken years ago. So while maybe exciting, he didn't get paid for those. And so a cautionary tale to understand that sometimes what you sign has a lot of future implications. So let's get to those, and let's get to really those things you should really look out for in order to make sure that you're maximizing the amount of money that you can make off of these deals. And this is important for people to know from a brand perspective. So whether you work for a brand, own a brand, represent a brand, or from the influencer perspective, are you an actor, model, blogger, influencer, athlete? Any of these people can benefit from this, and we want to make sure you're making the most money out of the service you're providing. So the first consideration is additional uses. So usually when you get an agreement from a brand, it will say, we're going to pay you in exchange for a post or for an Instagram story, or maybe we're going to ask you to create a graphic for one of our TV shows, or whatever the case is. Now, it's important, if it's not already discussed or mentioned in the contract, it's super important that you, whether as a lawyer, a manager, a representative, or in representing yourself, ask what and how are they going to use this content? Are they going to create additional products, right? Will there be derivative works created? Let's say you're creating a graphic for a show. Are they then going to make stuffed animals to sell with your graphic on it? Are they going to take your post and then put it on a billboard? Are they going to use it on their website? So all of those things are very important to, let me make sure, can everybody hear me okay? I'm getting some messages that I'm cutting in and out. Are we okay? Okay, thank you. All right, so it's very important that you specifically discuss the usage of your content. Is it a one-time static post? Can it be reposted through other affiliate links? Things like that. Be aware that you have to have this conversation. You cannot assume that the usage of your image or your post or whatever content you're creating stops there. You need to make sure you restrict the usage or that you're getting paid for the additional uses. The next consideration is collaboration deals. So sometimes these deals can be structured as one-time fees in exchange for a post, for a story, for things like that, or they can be structured as collaboration deals. Depending on the deal, it may sometimes be more beneficial to structure it as a collaboration deal than as a one-time post deal. Some of these big companies, you may benefit more from collaborating in promoting a product, benefit off of their marketing, benefit off of their platforms, benefit off of potentially selling the product through your own platform and keeping revenue that way. So these are all considerations that you should take into account when deciding how you want to structure this deal. The next thing is owning your intellectual property. And I won't get too far into copyrights, trademarks, and what those mean and what those are. However, it is important that you own your intellectual property. And there are several reasons. And I always say there's an offense and a defense reason for owning your intellectual property. The offense reason is you want to make sure that you can go after anybody who is capitalizing on the brands that you built. The defense reason is you want to make sure that you're not getting sued for a brand that you may not even have known existed, but that is owned by somebody else. Another consideration when you're an influencer or you're partnering with brands and promoting products is that they are going to want indemnifications. They are going to want you to sign off on the, showing that you own this brand, this name, whatever content you're creating. And if they get sued, they are going to quickly look to you to resolve those issues. And this obviously comes with a lot of money spent fighting these issues. And so you want to make sure that when you are creating content or promoting your brand or doing any of those things, that you are the rightful owner of those things, so that you are not worried that somebody may come back and file a claim against you or the company that you provided content for. Next consideration, I actually, just to bring up a quick point, I recently read that $1 saved is worth more than $1 earned. And that's especially relevant there. So making sure that you don't get sued, that you do own your IP and those things is worth more protecting yourself up front than maybe you do this deal and you end up losing twice as much money as the money you got from the deal because you weren't properly protected to begin with. The next consideration would be who owns the content. So as an influencer, when a brand contacts you and they say, hey, we want you to promote, you know, our water bottle or whatever they may be asking you to do, who's going to own that post? Are they just licensing it one time so that they have that one-time static post and that comes with its restrictions? Or are they asking you to create content for them that they can then potentially modify, that they can then potentially reuse? So aside from obviously the legal implications, you want to make sure that if it's a one-time license for a particular purpose, that has one price tag. If it's, I'm going to create a slew of content and you're going to do with that what you want, that has a different price tag. So those are different considerations you should be aware of as well. Another important consideration that may seem very obvious, but very often gets overlooked is the idea of gross versus net. Most contracts, when you first get them, will just say revenue. Well, what kind of revenue? And obviously one side is assuming gross and the other side is assuming net. Do not assume. Have those conversations. Make sure that both parties are on the same page as to whether it's a calculation based on gross revenue. Am I getting a percentage of the gross revenue, or am I getting a percentage of the net revenue? And if it's of the net revenue, what things are they calculating in those deductions? So when they're taking the gross and they're deducting certain expenses, do I have approval rights over those expenses? Do I have a say in how much gets deducted? Can I cap the amount of deductions? Things like that. So important considerations when you're getting a percentage in a deal like this. Another consideration is exclusivity. Now, this may not be an exact correlation between this contract and getting more money, but in the long run and in the span of your holistic career, limiting the exclusivity in certain categories is going to allow you to later on continue to make more deals. So if you make a deal with a big athletic brand and they stop you from doing deals with anyone in the sports industry, sports drinks, sports clothing, sports equipment, fitness studios, you've now limited a lot of streams of revenue for yourself. Whereas if you can limit the exclusivity to a very particular area, you're obviously allowing yourself to then be able to go on, capitalize on other markets. And then the final point I would urge everyone to consider is other forms of indirect revenue that you can get from these deals. Request credit, request that they tag you, request that they mention you. Most of these deals that these big brands are asking you to do, these brands already have big platforms, huge audiences, a very attentive audience that is very loyal to these brands. And so you have a captive audience that may not know you, and this is your way of making additional, maybe not dollars in the immediate sense, but this is what will continue to make you money by having a big name brand tag you on a post or credit you with certain things. People are now going to recognize that name. They're going to associate that name with these big reputable brands. So that's a quick recap, 7 important points that you should definitely look out for when you are considering these influencer contracts and how to really maximize the revenue from those deals. And I know we don't have much time, and I know we want to get a Q&A going. So hopefully that was a useful and good overview of some things to look out for. And the other thing is that, hopefully you have someone on your team, whether it be a great manager or a lawyer, who can help you with this. These are considerations that you should take into account. Also, at the end of the Q&A, I'll leave my email address and other ways to contact me. If anybody has any questions on this, I'm happy to chat further.
Thank you, Brenda. And I thought that was great. I have a question, actually. What advice would you give someone who's a social media influencer who may have already signed an unfavorable agreement?
Sure. So that happens very often. It happens a lot of times, obviously, that starting out, some influencers aren't making a ton of money from these deals. And so they don't have the luxury of hiring an attorney because the attorney costs more than what the deal is paying them. Or they're very excited for the opportunity to work with a brand, and they'll just sign everything quickly because they want to make sure they don't let the deal die, which is important. You want to find a lawyer and a manager who's going to make sure the deal doesn't die, but will still protect you. So in those situations where you've already signed it and things have already come and gone, first line of defense is obviously to contact the rep that you're working with and say, hey, I feel uncomfortable about what I signed. Can we maybe add some language, add some provisions, etc. Past that point, you're at the mercy of the brand because you've now signed, unless it was signed completely, unknowingly, or you may have some defenses in that arena. But usually at that point, you're limited to really just, good faith kind of, hey, help me out. Unless it's something egregious where you may potentially have some sort of claim, and that's obviously a very fact-specific situation.
Okay. And Macy Nix asks, can you speak to the emerging startup atmosphere in Miami? And what aspects of that atmosphere make startups in Miami enticing and unique?
Absolutely. So I can speak on this from both a social media perspective and also from a business perspective. So startups in Miami are really growing. I mean, I think Miami generally, from a cultural standpoint, continues to grow. We just had an amazing panel on graffiti and Wynwood and how Wynwood is becoming a huge arts capital. We also have a lot of hospitality and restaurants that are emerging that are really, setting a different tone. We have more theater. We have more tech companies that are coming down here. Florida is great for taxes. So we're getting some, people wising up to that. So I think slowly but surely, Miami is becoming, maybe we're not quite California yet, but at least I do think it's emerging. I also think that there's a lot of young entrepreneurial people in Miami that understand the power of social media. And I think that social media is an incredible tool to market young businesses. It's cheap, it's effective, it's direct to consumers, and it's powerful. So I think those two things very much intertwine. And I think that Miami is one of those emerging markets for startups and entrepreneurs generally.
And as a leader in the legal and the business community, you have a unique perspective yourself. And Gerard Williams asks, social media is obviously a very visual medium. How are your clients navigating marketing while not being able to attend events or do certain things at this time?
Sure. So I think this time, there's kind of only two ways to go about this. You either retract or you become wildly inventive. And I've been loving some of the ways that I've seen people use their platforms to really help, to whether it's spreading awareness, whether it's asking for donations and donating, whether it's through charitable mediums, whether it's through helping their local communities. And so sometimes the best thing you can do for your brand is to use it for good. And the social influencers that are, influencers or brands or whatever that are taking this time to get creative, to use their platforms to help, to bring positivity. Sometimes helping is just doing something that makes somebody laugh. While still, obviously, there are considerations. You have contractual obligations to post certain things, to do certain things. So I've seen some influencers get super creative in the comfort of their own homes. And that's great, right? It's also a silver lining of new inspired creativity.
And the next question comes from Carolina Baroto, who's actually the newly elected president of the Entertainment and Sports Law Society at Miami. And she says, hi, Brenda. What are some distinct issues that you think influencers face depending on the social media platform, such as what issues influencers face on Instagram versus TikTok or Facebook? And how can attorneys protect their influencer clients from these issues?
Sure, so that's a great question. Congrats first on becoming ESLS president. That's big stuff. I think that the varying platforms definitely have some nuances and different considerations, but generally what you have to be most aware of is copyright issues relating to the images, the text, and the music that is being used. The different platforms, again, have different considerations. As a lawyer, it is incredibly difficult to, you want to inform your clients as much as possible, because half the battle as an advisor is to educate my clients, right? I want my clients to understand what's allowed and what's not, which in the social media world is sometimes completely counterintuitive. What do you mean I can't repost something and that's copyright infringement? That's ludicrous. Everybody does it. Yes, but just because everybody does it doesn't make it legal. And so one of my biggest tasks as an attorney that represents a lot of people on social media is to educate them. And education is power. And so the more I can inform my clients, and whether it's influencers or business owners, what can you post? What can you not post? What permission do you have to get? I am, always following all of my clients, making sure if they post something, hey, did you make sure you got permission for this? Did you do that? Did you do that? Which obviously I can't be on social media all day, but I do my very best to inform my clients, because I think that the more they know, the more powerful they are. Same goes for their managers, their agents, anybody around them. The more I can inform the general public, as well as my clients, the more empowered they will be to make good, lawful decisions regarding their social media.
And following up on that, as an attorney with both distinguished litigation and transactional experience, can you talk about the role you have not only in putting out fires that may arise, but also preventing them from happening?
So that's a great way to put it. I literally say all I do is put out fires all day, right? So lawyers are supposed to be and should be great problem solvers. So to reiterate your question, how do I put out fires and how do I prevent fires?
Yes.
Okay. So putting out fires is very case specific. There are a ton of different resources and legal tools that you can use if your social media causes any sort of legal issues. Sometimes it's with relations to the brand, and that's why we have cure periods, notifications, things that we try to work out within, the deals. To give the influencer, my clients, or the brands an opportunity to cure any imperfections, or, there's also things to account for regarding FTC compliance. And I try to put some of that liability back on the brand or the influencer, depending on which side I'm on. Both parties are ultimately responsible. And so you want to make sure that you kind of have a system of checks and balances. And then, then there's obviously taking down copyrights, taking down infringers, protecting the brands that you worked so tirelessly to create and to make reputable. And all of those have different implications and different tools that we use to make sure that they're being properly handled. Prevention of fires, as Smokey the Bear would say, is very different. But again, if I had to bring it all down to one thing, I would say knowledge is power. The more I can inform the general public, my clients, photographers, graphic designers, artists, business owners, the more they understand about the copyright laws and just laws in general, or, these new media forms that are emerging, the law has not caught up to them. And so what is intuitive is not always lawful. And, that's why I do my very best to try to inform the general public as much as I can, because I think that that's where we can prevent the most fires.
Okay, well, I see our time is running out. I want to ask one or two more questions and then give you time to close. Alexa Rosen says, thank you for a very comprehensive and informative presentation. Her question has to do with attribution. If content is reposted from a source and the originator is given proper credit in that repost, are there still infringement concerns? And what constitutes proper attribution or giving proper credit?
Great question. So this is actually very counterintuitive. A lot of my clients will say, but what do you mean? I tagged the person, I gave them credit, and my response is, so you made them aware that you infringed on their copyright. So even though in real life, oftentimes when you credit someone, they're very flattered, and that's a good thing. If you're looking strictly at copyright law, posting somebody else's work and then letting them know you did that is just alerting them to an infringement. Now, this is different if you actually got an assignment or permission from this person. And assignments or permission that you get from these people depend on what the use is for. Is it for personal use? Is it for commercial use? How are you going to use this content is also very important and specific when you're getting that assignment or that license or that permission, generally put. So while in the everyday practice of things, giving credit is seen as a good thing and, you know, kind of a nod of respect and of, wow, I love your work and I want to continue to share it with the world, from a legal standpoint, that's still an infringement. And so I urge you to ask and say, hey, can I use this? I absolutely love your work. I want to use it for X, Y, and Z. Do I have your permission? And you know, make sure that you're getting those things ideally in writing. But you know, there's a little bit more to that, but it is definitely counterintuitive. And also from the artist perspective or from the originator's perspective, on one hand, you want people to spread your message. You want people to repost your content. You want to do those things. But not enforcing your rights can sometimes expose you to consequences down the line where you may lose those rights if you haven't been properly enforcing them.
Thank you, Brenda, and thanks so much for sharing and answering our questions. I know there are still more, so I want to give you the opportunity to share your closing remarks and maybe leave your contact information, as you mentioned.
Definitely, guys. So I really hope this was helpful. I absolutely love being able to chat with you guys. This is admittedly the first presentation I've done for such a large audience with no shoes. So it's been really fun. I would love to continue to chat. I will give you guys my contact information. Feel free to reach out with questions, ideas, comments. My firm's name is DiSchino and Schamy. Our website is www.dsmiami.com. On Instagram, I am bshams, BSCHAMS, and our firm is at ds_Miami. And my email is brenda@dsmiami.com. Happy to hear from all of you guys. Bear with me. I'm definitely going to try to get back to everybody, but thank you for listening, for participating. It was super fun.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thanks for joining us. And for everyone, we look forward and hope you enjoy the rest of the programming. Thank you.
Thank you.